just before my 5th birthday, the Disney movie Pocahontas came out in movie theaters, and my mom took me to go see it. So, I was a little kid in the 90s, so going to the movies was a big deal. And I remember sitting there in the movie theater watching the film's depiction of this noble Native American tribe. And I remember Pocahontas would go to the forest to consult with spirits there. And something about this depiction of nature and spirits and wisdom and nobility moved me. It moved my little, almost 5-year-old heart. And I felt this wave of bliss wash over my body. It was like a current of joy ran through me. And I didn't know what this was or what to think of it. I was only 5. So I just enjoyed it. And somehow I never forgot it. Fast forward a few years, and I'm a junior in college, walking back to my frat house late one night on a weeknight. And I don't remember what I was doing that night, if I was out hanging out with friends or if it was a rare night of studying. But regardless, it was a cold night at the College of William & Mary down in Virginia, which has a beautiful campus with enormous trees. And because it was cold, my hands were in my pocket and I was walking down this small paved path in the woods. And this path came to an opening, a clearing. As I stepped into that opening, I felt this tingling sensation arise in my hands. It was as if my hands were buzzing. And I remember taking my hands out of my pockets and just staring at my hands. Now, thankfully nobody else was there, because if they saw me, they probably would have thought, who's this guy tripping balls, on drugs, alone in the woods on a weeknight. But I remember that ever since that moment, anytime I would bring my attention to my hands, that buzzing would emerge. So I went home that night and I did what I imagine most of you would do in that situation. I Googled it. I Googled something like tingling vibration in hands, and I saw a bunch of articles on Reiki. Reiki is a Japanese healing modality that involves emitting an energy from the hands that is supposed to have a healing effect. So I met with a local teacher and I received training. Later, summer break that year, I went back home and sort of had a chance to go back to my Buddhist roots. And I went to a meditation retreat at a forest meditation center. And it was there that I came to realize that this sensation, this energetic, blissful, tingly sensation, was not confined to my hands. I could feel it in my feet, in my tongue, in the chest, and at times it would even envelop my whole body. So some days I would sit there just feeling this buzzing, blissful sensation throughout my whole body, but I didn't really know what it was. Eventually, I graduated from college and I started working. And around this time, I started to get really bad migraines. And they sort of became this debilitating, chronic, daily thing in my life. And so I went to a bunch of doctors and neurologists. I took several tests. I tried, 3 different drugs, and nothing was really working. So I went to a meditation teacher that I trusted at the time, and I still trust. He's a great meditation teacher, but he told me that the issue was that I was too attached to this pleasure that was arising in meditation. So my attachment to that pleasure was leading me astray. And this sort of made sense to me. I mean, you hear in meditation circles and Dharma circles that attachment leads to suffering. So, okay, it made some sense. And then he said that this healing energy in the body, this Reiki sort of thing, was leading to headaches. So somehow that energy arising in the body was resulting in these chronic migraines. But the thing is, I found that I could not meditate and not have this energy arise. It was like as soon as I would bring my attention inwards, I would feel my body in this sort of energetic sense. And what's more, I could not be attached to that pleasure. I mean, it just felt so good. It was so enticing, so beautiful, and so different from any other sensation I could find outside of the practice that it was impossible to not be attracted to this bliss, this pleasure that was arising in my meditation practice. So what did I do? What could I do? I put meditation to the side for about 6 years. And during that time, I refocused my efforts on my career, on girls, and on going out. Not necessarily in that order, but there you have it. And as time went on, I started to feel lost. I felt disconnected. I don't know if I would have used these words, but it was clear that something was missing in my life. Wherever I was looking for that something, I wasn't finding it. As more time passed, it became clear that even without meditating, that energetic sense would still find ways to creep into my body. I noticed that whenever I would be driving and I saw a car pulled over on the side of the road by a police officer, I would instinctively have a thought of, I hope that person's okay. May they be well. And then boom, this lightning bolt of bliss would hit me from my head to my toes, and I could feel my body reverberate with that energy for a few seconds. And the thought began to occur to me, if this energy flows following a spontaneous thought of compassion, how could it be bad? And I suspected that this energy was not Reiki at all. It was something else, something more natural, something innate and humane. So my attitude towards it started to shift. I started to learn about it through experimentation, just playing around with different thoughts and postures and things of this nature. I started to cultivate this energetic bliss. And I found that it had this medicinal, relieving quality to it. I'm someone who holds a lot of tension in their bodies. And when this bliss would arise, it would move through the body and just alleviate that tension in whatever area it was moving through. I started to see that it became a resource for me. Whenever I was able to call upon it, I felt stronger, more confident, more myself. It became this wonderful support for me. And over time, I began to walk around with it and take it with me wherever I went, whenever it was open to me. I remember one day walking through the mall and just feeling my whole body permeating with this pleasure, this bliss. And this became my nourishment. It became my most reliable source of joy, and yet I still did not know what it was. I would ask different meditation teachers about it and get all kinds of confusing answers, to the point where I just stopped asking. And then a few years ago, I happened upon the teachings of Rob Burbea, an amazing Dharma teacher who sadly passed away a couple years ago. But through his teachings, it was clear that he knew exactly what I was experiencing. So one, I was starting to become more and more sensitive to the subtle energy in the body. And two, this blissful quality that would come in waves and reverberate throughout the body. This was something called piti in the ancient language of Pali, P-I-T-I, piti. And this was something that had been cultivated by millions of people across thousands of years. It was not something to run away from. And what's really interesting is, over time, I've been able to reflect upon a very, very famous story in the Buddha's life that has some eerie similarities to my story with piti. And even though I knew this story since I was very young, I hadn't quite learned all the lessons from it. So the Buddha, before he became an enlightened being, was what we call the truth seeker. And there was a time in his life where he embraced a meditation teaching that had become quite popular amongst yogis in India. The teaching was very similar to what I had been told at that one crucial point in my life. The teaching was essentially that pleasure leads to suffering, and that attachment to pleasure is what is keeping us from enlightenment. So when I heard this, I went to a period of about 6 years where I wasn't practicing meditation. But the Buddha, of course, is far more hardcore and dedicated than I. So he actually went into a period of 6 years where he practiced self-emaciation, which means starvation. And it's said that he took this further than anyone else. He was absolutely committed in this. It said that you could touch his belly and you would feel his spine. And then one day, the Buddha has this recollection of a memory when he's a young child, sitting in the cool shade on a warm day. And he's sitting under the rose apple tree in his garden, surrounded by loved ones, people who helped raise him. And as he sat there in safety and in comfort, appreciating the beauty of the day, he began to feel the breath flow through his body, and this energetic bliss of piti spontaneously arose in his body. It's quite similar to the story of me, close to my 5th birthday, sitting in the movie theater next to a loved one and my mother, appreciating what I saw on screen, feeling safe and comfortable, which allowed for this piti, this bliss, to arise in my body. And such is the courage and the wisdom of the Buddha that memory made him realize that this meditative bliss, this pleasure that is not dependent on external stimuli, is not to be feared. It's blameless. It is something to be pursued and developed. So he completely changed his strategy, and you can imagine how difficult it must have been. When you've been striving and doing something so challenging as starving yourself for 6 years, to have the courage to try something else and realize that what you were doing was wrong and just change your strategy. It's an amazing feat. In fact, there were 5 yogis who had been practicing with him at this time, and they observed him eating some food and now practicing pleasure. So they thought, man, this guy's gone soft. And they actually left him alone in the woods. But the Buddha had not gone soft. He hadn't given up. He was on to something. And he followed that pleasure. He deepened it. And through it, a liberating insight or wisdom arose in him. And he became what's known as the Buddha, which means awakened one. He awakened to things as they are. And through that realization, he became irreversibly freed from suffering. So what can we take away from this? The fact that a young child can feel this meditative pleasure and bliss shows that it is natural and accessible. To be disconnected from it is to be disconnected from our innate capacity for joy. There is a breathtakingly beautiful pleasure that all of us can come to experience. It's found within our own bodies. It can be felt right here, right now. You don't need to convert religions. You don't need to change who you are. You just need to learn how to look into your body, and this resource will open up for you. And sometimes I wonder what people think when they hear me make this claim. Do they doubt it? Do they doubt themselves and their ability to find this pleasure? Perhaps because they don't see themselves as meditators, or perhaps the idea of a Buddha or piti is so foreign to them. But don't doubt yourself. The vast majority of us drastically underestimate what we're capable of. And don't doubt it until you've at least given it a try. This is not about being a yogi or being anyone at all. If you are a human being and you are searching for happiness, then this practice is for you. And if you put forth earnest effort and learn meditation in the right way, this amazing resource of piti and of samadhi, which means harmony, gathering, the unification of your body and mind, this amazing resource will become open to you, and it will make you more effective in your careers, in your relationships, and in every aspect of your lives. My name is Ranga, and I teach meditation, and I hope that I can be a support for you in this practice, and perhaps I can help you avoid some of the pitfalls that I've made on my own path. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and follow us on social media to enrich your life with daily teachings on meditation and on the deep joy of jhana. You can also go to meditatewithranga.com to take our free online intro course, book one-on-one sessions with me, or join our community on Discord or on our bi-weekly group meditation sessions.